Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Legends of Tomorrow. So in this episode, we have the entire crew in 1958 tracking down Savage. And the best way that they feel they can track down Savage is by investigating this serial killer that's going around this specific town they end up in. They're not 100% sure if this is related to Savage or not, but gotta start somewhere, right? A very interesting thing about this episode was kind of because it's in the 50s, you have people like Kendra, Jax, and Sarah kind of dealing with the backlash of time travel. Kind of Jax and Sarah say it kind of best when they're talking to Stein, saying like, oh, like this time period's not the best for, this time period's only good for you when you're white, a male, and straight. So they're all three of them are kind of screwed on this front, because you see it when like Kendra. It's an interesting thing because it's a downside to time travel that they could have like totally not included that, but then people probably would have been pissed like, oh, that's not historically accurate, blah blah blah. So, and in this episode you had everyone kind of going undercover. You have Jax as a high school student, Stein going undercover as a doctor, Sarah a nurse, Snark and Rip kind of play detective for a little bit. I was hoping they would do a little bit more of that. I thought we'd see them kind of investigating. They just kind of used it as the disguise. And you also have Kendra and Ray playing hubby and wife, with Savage as a next door neighbor, which is weird seeing him just kind of living a normal life, having a wife and everything, because we've never really seen that aspect of him in his past lives. We've always seen him like at any point in time we've seen him so far in the show, it's just he's always been by himself, and it's like, oh, he's trying to do this ambitious thing, but we've never seen him like have like a normal life, because he's even having like parties at his house and stuff like that. Basically, he acts as a doctor at the local kind of I think it's a mental asylum is what it is, that he's basically doing experiments in the basement. The boys you see at the beginning of that episode are some of said experiments. We have basically he's taking energy from that meteor, that rock you see at the beginning of the episode, and he basically was injecting and experimenting on them, turning them into monsters. And you later on find out that this very rock is the same, at the very least similar to the rock that gave Kendra, Carter, as well as Savage himself the powers that they have now. Which to me is like, is this possibly alluding to the fact that they are, that, what Kendra and Carter are aliens? Because do correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not well versed comic book wise, but aren't there other versions of Hawkman and Hawkgirl's backstory, and in one of those backstories they're an alien, like they're from an alien race? Because I remember something like that in the Justice League cartoon, because there was like a point they went to a planet of Hulk people. So was this referencing that a little bit? Could we end up seeing more Hulk people because they actually are aliens, meaning there's a whole planet of them out there somewhere? Or is this just me reading too much into it? Which I'm kind of thinking it's just me reading too much into it. It's probably like a one and done type of thing. It's like, oh yeah, this is these, probably adding a more science fictional aspect to their abilities, making it like, oh, it's some meteorite and from space that crashed down and gave them their powers. Part of me is wondering, or could this possibly lead to like a Smallville situation, where like basically people in Smallville ended up getting meteor rocks, kryptonite, and gaining special abilities from it? Could it be something like that? I mean, granted, that would make sense because you see that Savage is trying to form an army of his own. So, An interesting thing that came up in this episode was Sarah and, her, hitting on that nurse. I really did like that because even Stein hinted at it. He was basically saying, like, it's interesting. They came there to do a job, and then here's Sarah flirting with this nurse, trying to seduce her. And she's like, no, I'm not trying to seduce her. I'm just basically trying to get her to come out of her shell because it's obviously that she's just kind of been repressed because, back in that day, it's not a good thing to be gay. So she's kind of repressed herself. So she's like, I'm trying to have her open up, and then I might possibly be trying to seduce her. That's kind of what Sarah was saying, and I like that. But a very interesting thing that Sarah kind of brought up is the fact is, when her and the nurse make out, she kind of pulls away from the nurse. Not the nurse pulled away from her; it was her who pulled away from the nurse. And she kind of brought up a point to Stein that this is kind of her first, like, time being intimate with someone since coming back, and I never really thought about that. I thought it was very interesting. So it's kind of like, I don't know. I guess it's kind of like feeling love for the first time ever for her. Even though she's already felt it before, but since coming back, this is her first time like feeling those feelings, and it's just, I don't know. It's interesting. Another thing that popped up in this episode was Jack's kind of having a problem with Snart because we have no idea what Snart did to Mick. It was not brought up in the episode. I mean, constantly Jack kept bringing. Jax was like, like, what did you do to Mick? And it's like he kept avoiding the question. At one point, Jax was like, we need to be careful because it's like, because he even said it straight up to Snart's face. He's like, we have to be careful because like you took out your partner, like probably one of the only few people in like ever that you trust completely. You took him out. So what hope is there for us? What's to say you won't turn on us and just kill us at any given moment? But Jax eventually apologizes for that near the end of the episode because Snart had the moment of saving him, had the opportunity. When Jax had gotten injected by that meteorite and was turning to one of those Hulk monsters, and Snart had an option of saving, Snart ended up saving him. I mean, mainly he saved him by not killing him, but still. And he was like, I owe you an apology for that. Like, doing what you had to do to make whatever that was. Maybe we'll eventually get an answer to what that is that he did. But he's like, to do what you did it because you were protecting us. You were looking out for us. So thank you. One thing I kind of like too is Kendra going up against Savage. She kind of somewhat went into it solo because at that time Savage didn't realize Kendra had basically awakened, like gained back all her memories and awakened her powers, because that's the only time he can steal her life force and get her power is during that time which everything comes back to her. Until then, he can't do anything to her. So they had an element of surprise because previously, earlier in the episode, Ray had snuck into his house and stolen his knife, the knife that they could use to kill him. Kendra, surprised him. I mean, granted, he kind of saw through it because he's like, how do you not think I wouldn't notice my knife going missing and you just happen to pop up in my life? So obviously you know who you are this entire time. They get into a little bit of a scuffle. It's kind of cool because you see Kendra land some pretty good blows against him. It's like, all right. But, Savage ends up getting away because Ray ends up blasting him out the window before he could kill Kendra. So. But at the very end of the episode, we have Kronos attacking the ship. He actually gets aboard the ship and starts attacking. Things are going crazy. You have Ray, Kendra, and Sarah, who weren't on a ship yet. They were, dealing with the last minute stuff here in 1958, and they're approaching the ship, and all of a sudden the ship takes off and leaves them behind. And leaves as in opens up a portal, as in like they're going through time, not like it just simply flew off, and you're like, what happened? So it's like, that is the question. What happened on that ship? Like, why would they up and leave? We kind of saw that outside perspective. We don't know 100% of everything that went down that led to them doing what they did. Well, sadly, we won't be getting any answers until March 31st when the show comes back. So, but that's all I really want to say for this. So until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.